So I just got home from seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And I have to say the movie was fine. It was a fun movie that kids, teens, tweens, whatever, they'll enjoy it. So if you're an adult watching this, go take your family, go see the movie. I'm sure your kids will love it. As I was leaving the theater, there were a ton of kids talking about how they really loved the movie. They thought it was really good, and it reminded me of when I was a little kid. My dad would take me to go see the new animated movies. I'd be gushing about how great the movie was, and he'd just be like, "It was cute, it was fine," which always annoyed me as a kid. But like now I'm kind of in his shoes, and I kind of feel the same way about this movie. Which like, man, that I'm feeling old right now. Anyway, TMNT Mutant Mayhem. Speaking on the positives, it does look great. The movie has that strong New York vibe from the soundtrack to the animation to the art style. It all feels awesome. I love the way everything looks. It very much feels like New York street art graffiti come to life on the screen. All the character designs and everything look great and are extremely distinct from one another. All the turtles are designed in a way that they're all like slightly different shapes instead of just all being like 100% uniform with just the differentiating colors of their, masks and bands and stuff. I love how they took a lot of inspiration from all different interpretations of turtles to form their new designs. Like Donnie's got all the tech that he got in like more of the recent series of TMNT. They have like their letters and names and like the little shoulder pads and stuff that they had from back in the day with like the original TMNT series from like the 90s and everything. I really do like all of that stuff. It's really cool. It's great callbacks. We are introduced to a new mutant in this called Superfly, voiced by Ice Cube. He was actually really menacing and terrifying, and I liked his character design, how aggressive his character was. I can definitely see a few shots in this movie maybe scaring like a real little kid that wasn't expecting it. There are a few like jump scares kind of in it that are comedic for me because I didn't find them scary, but I could definitely see like a little kid who doesn't find it silly seeing like a mutant like pop up out of nowhere be a bit scary. But it is what it is. The humor in this movie is kind of hit or miss, and I will say that is like either positive or negative depending on the kind of person that you are, because the humor in this movie is very Gen Z, and if you don't find Gen Z 15-year-olds funny, you may not find this movie funny because it definitely has that kind of humor. And this is coming from someone who is in that generation. I'm just on the older end of that generation, and it didn't really work for me because for me, I grew up with like the 2003 TMNT series and the TMNT movie that would come out a few years later, I think like 2007 if I'm not mistaken. I grew up with them being more mature and more serious and like serialized storytelling. So they're a bit more cringy, they're a bit younger, they are 15 in this movie, so like freshmen in high school age. That's the kind of vibe they're going with for this film. They feel like teenagers from today, which is going to resonate with the kids, teens of today, because they're going to feel like they can relate to the movie. But me being a somewhat older TMNT fan, I wasn't that really into it. It didn't make me not like the movie. Like, I don't hate it or anything like that, but it just kind of made me want to rewatch some of the older series. And I kind of started having this feeling when like Rise of the TMNT came out, because that was more comedic and they started acting more like the current generation of teenagers. And this movie is what I was afraid was going to happen with that, but it's happening now with this. So although it doesn't completely put me off, I'm not going to say I'm like 100% gung ho on board with it. I would prefer the Turtles to be more mature like they have been in like the current comics and the older cartoons, and not even that old cartoons, because like the 2012 Turtles, kind of had still that more mature vibe in that series. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. That's how I like my Turtles. That's how I grew up with them from all the different media and everything like that. But that's not a knock to this movie. It's just more of a specific thing that I don't like. Hell, most of my gripes with the negatives of this movie really have to do with the alterations they made to previous iterations, because this is a complete reinvention, like from the ground up, of the Turtles. Like, their origin stuff's still the same. There are things that are the same from previous stuff, but it does feel like a brand new generation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with their own unique world that is just remixing the elements of the past, which I think is probably the best way to do things. But obviously, you're going to have people like me that disagree with some of the changes that you made, and people who don't disagree with the changes and they think they work. It's just a gamble on where you fall on the side of the die. I did also love the soundtrack in this movie. That soundtrack slaps. It's a bunch of classic songs from New Yorkers that you'll recognize, especially if you're from the area. So all in all, Mutant Mayhem is a fun movie. It can be cringy at times because, like I said, the characters are portrayed after current year teenagers, so they can be cringe and uncomfortable to be around, maybe even annoying sometimes. So just keep that in mind if you're an adult going to see the movies. If you're a TMNT fan, I'm sure you'll have a good time. You might have a few gripes with some of the changes that they make, and especially how the movie ends, because it does a very bold thing that I'm personally not a fan of them doing, and I don't want to spoil it and talk about it. So just keep that in mind. The way the movie ends is something I personally disagree with the lore of the Turtles and their story, and I'll see how it plays out, because I know this movie's already confirmed for a sequel film, as well as a bunch of interim TV series that are going to take place in between this movie and the next one. One of them is supposed to be like a story about like each turtle individually going on their own adventures, which I was extremely excited for until I saw what the end of this movie was. So now I'm a little bit skeptical and kind of scared about what those standalone adventures are going to be. But I'm not going to crucify the show before it even starts like development or anything like that, or I even see it streaming on Paramount Plus. So I'm going to be continuing to check out this stuff. I feel like the Turtles could mature with time as the movies go on, and it could get better. It could resonate with me more, feel more like the older ones the older they get, because that is something that could happen. I said the Turtles are young. Maybe as years go on, they start getting more mature, become more like their older iterations. That could be cool. The only character I will say I probably didn't like is probably Splinter. Splinter, I'm used to him being like this wise old mentor of a character who trains the turtles and everything like that, but he's kind of like a middle-aged dad who wants to stay connected to his kids that happen to learn martial arts. And that's probably my biggest gripe with the movie. I don't like how they learn martial arts in the movie, watching martial arts movies instead of Splinter either being the pet of Hamato Yoshi or being Hamato Yoshi himself, like it has been in previous iterations, because it just, I don't know, the suspension of disbelief of the Turtles and everything learning martial arts via watching Bruce Lee movies, as opposed to Splinter being the pet or being a ninja himself that then translates that to the Turtles, just doesn't sit right with me. But like I said, that's gripes of them changing things from the past to reinvent them in the new day and age. So, in short, it's a fun movie. Kids and teens will probably like it. If you're an adult seeing this movie, it won't rot your brain. You'll probably have a good time. If you're someone that's, not a fan of the Turtles and you're just taking your kids to go see it, you'll have a good time and you won't want to, jump off a building or something. And if you are a TMNT fan, it's kind of up in the air on whether you're going to like this movie or not, in my opinion. So that's all I have to say about Mutant Mayhem. Those are my thoughts. If you want to hear me go into the spoilers and like nitty gritty of the stuff that like I didn't like I mentioned, I didn't like the ending of the movie, let me know in the comments down below. And I'm the innocent villain. Remember, folks, you're innocent to prove villainous. I'll catch you next time.